Good morning, everybody. Really good morning. I really do appreciate you all being here this morning. The last time as a group we did this, we all got to the meeting a little early, and we were anticipating a crowd like yours, and there were only about 10 people in the room. So we said to the director, we said, did you tell all of your group that we were going to speak? And she said, no, I guess the word got out, though. So I'm glad the word didn't get out. You all showed up in this bad weather, and I don't know if you saw the weather forecast. If you have showings, I think I'd try to do them today in the first half of tomorrow. I think they're predicting 1 to 4 starting tomorrow afternoon, and then like 2 to 5 on Saturday. So we've got worse weather than Sochi, Russia has. Did you know that? Where they're having the Winter Olympics. I thought I'd just give you a few things that I look at and that I think are important as you go forward this year. First of all, congratulations on last year. 2013 probably is the third best year in real estate history in Central Indiana as far as buyers and sellers represented. And considering where we were, that's remarkable. One of the interesting things, if you think about that last year, back in 2006, 2007, when we had a really, really uncontrollable market, there were about 7,600 agents in the market. And if you divided the number of sales that were available by those 7,600 agents, you had a ratio of 8 to 1. So in a perfect world, the average agent would have done 8 transactions. If you did that same thing this past year, with the number of agents being down to 5,200, that ratio is over 10. So quite honestly, you had better opportunities last year for sales than you would have had in the heyday market of 2006, 2007. We are predicting that this coming year, sales will go up 4 to 6% in units. We're predicting that the average sale price is going to go up about 10%. And it went up this year, certainly in different markets around the city. And if you read the MIBOR reports, it's probably 4 to 5% on average, but there were some markets that were much higher than that. Home ownership rates right now are 15-year low. They're at 65.5%. If you remember back in 1990 when Barney Frank and Bill Clinton decided to encourage the lenders to come up with subprime lending and lower the lending standards, their target was to hit 70% home ownership. We got in the 67, 68 range before things collapsed. I think one of the things that you're going to see occur this coming year is you're going to see a lot of what I call bounce back buyers. And these are buyers that for one reason or another lost their home in 2008, 9, and 10, and they're going to come back into the market. And I think you're going to see lenders be a little bit more agreeable about it. I think you're going to see the shadow inventory dropping. You know, there's been a lot written about the shadow inventory, that this thing's hanging over our head out there. If you go back in 2010, 33% of our sales were foreclosures or short sales. This year we're predicting it's going to be about 8%. The normal in the market is 2 to 4%. So that has dropped like a rock. If you built your business on that model, the REO business, I would make sure that you stay on top of that and look at that model and see if it's deteriorating, because there's just not going to be the opportunities in that REO line like there were. Interest rates, good news, bad news. Interest rates are going to go up. We're probably going to see interest rates go up into the mid to the high 5s. Now, you know, a lot of people would say, well, that's bad news. Well, really the good news is the only reason the interest rates will go up is the economy is getting better. If the economy is getting better, there'll be more jobs, lower unemployment. Unemployment certainly is one of the key statistics that drives the housing market. So you're going to see those rates go up. Now, let me put 5 3/4% interest in perspective for you. Some of you are relatively new in the business, and you started when they were in the 3s. And quite honestly, that's unrealistic. In the height of the real estate market in 06 and 07, rates were in the 6.5 to 7% range. That's when we were selling all the homes. The National Bankers Association has said that housing will not be affected by interest rates until the rate gets to 9 or 10%. And the reason being is that it's still it's better to buy than it is to rent because the way rents have gone up. Stock market. Last year when I stood before you, the stock market was 13,300 on the Dow. And I predicted it would go to 15,000. And there were people in the room that if you had tomatoes on your table, you would have thrown them at me. You thought, what is he doing? Where is he getting these numbers? Well, the fact of the matter is the stock market, the 52-week high, is 16.6. So it blew by that 15,000 number. I think you're going to see the stock market continue to go. And the good news about that is it brings wealth to companies and wealth to individuals. If people feel wealth, they're going to get involved in the real estate market. When the market collapsed in the fall of '08, and how many of you remember that when the stock market went to 6,800? People were running for cover, people were scared to death, and they weren't going to do anything. See, people feeling secure will fuel our market. One of the things that I think you're going to have to deal with this coming year is the effect of the Dodd-Frank legislation. And the Dodd-Frank legislation has a part in it about a qualified mortgage. And a qualified mortgage has to meet these standards, or they can't sell a loan to Fannie and Freddie. And if a lender makes a loan that doesn't comply with the QM standards, and the loan goes bad, the lender's got to buy it back. Well, there's an awful lot of smaller lenders right now that are evaluating whether they're even going to be in the mortgage business. So and there's a lot of mortgage people in the room, and I think if you talk to them, to a person, they would tell you that these are uncharted waters for them. So who knows what's going to happen there. Challenges for 2014 also, lack of inventory, that's been touched on. Lack of new construction. In the peak market, there were 13,000 to 14,000 new homes built in central Indiana. The last couple of years, there's been about 2,900 to 3,500. I don't see that number coming back, and the reason being is if you look at the builders that made up that production in 2006 and 7, they're gone. So the only ones that you have standing now, you have a few local guys, but most of them are national builders. National builders are not going to build specs. MI might, a couple of them might, but the majority of them are not going to have a spec inventory out there for you to go out and sell. So I think that's going to be a challenge. I think the other challenge you're going to have is the media influence. I think the media this year is really going to be difficult for us to deal with. And I hope that you'll really listen to what I'm saying, because this not just goes to the media, but it goes to your consumer. If you look back at last year, we had numbers each month, sales, that were off the charts. That were off the charts. There are going to be months this year where our corresponding sales for that month are not as good as they were last year. Well, the media loves to say, oh my goodness, sales are off 12%. Well, statistically, 1 month isn't valid enough to get credibility. The thing that we need to move the media to is the year-to-date numbers. What are the year-to-date numbers doing? And are the year-to-date numbers holding up against the prior year? The other thing to be looking at is tax reform in Washington. I think you're going to see tax reform come. I think you're going to see the interest rate deduction come into play. I know the National Association really gets upset thinking about losing the mortgage interest rate deduction, but the reality of it is there's only 35% of the homeowners in America that get to take advantage of it. The other reality is in Canada, they do not have a mortgage interest rate deduction, and they have a higher ownership rate than we do in America. I think what you're probably going to see come down out of Washington is that the interest deduction will be in play for people maybe that have a mortgage under $400,000 or $500,000. If you have a mortgage for $700,000 or $800,000, $900,000, maybe only the first $400,000 or $500,000 of it's going to be deductible. But when that comes out, don't get all worried about it. It's not that big of a deal. NAR is going to try to make it a big deal, but trust me, it is not that big of a deal. The other thing is big business. I think you're going to see corporate transfers pick up this year. Big businesses have been on the sidelines. It usually costs about $75,000 to $90,000 to bring the corporate executive and move them. Well, when the market got tough and corporate executives were cutting back, that was the first thing they stopped doing. They stopped moving people. Well, I mean, if you watch any of the shows on television now, I think you'll see that corporate America is flat, and they're fat with cash. So you're going to see more moves coming. And that relocation business has been soft in the last couple of years, but I think you're going to see it come back. In closing, I want to pass on to you a saying that I am using this year, and hopefully you'll think about it. Dissatisfaction is the basis of progress. When we become satisfied, we become obsolete. If you're satisfied with your business, chances are you're going to be obsolete because it's changing. It's changing so fast. And as I look back on my career, I'd be afraid to tell you some of the stuff that back then, the way we did business, and somebody would look at us and say, how did you ever do that? Well, this thing's moving rapidly, folks. And don't become satisfied.